welcome everybody to Monday Morning Call with Paul. We got our special guest here, Long Saechao. Man, so good to have you on, man. I feel like we've known each other for quite a long time here. So let's kind of back up and why don't you tell us a little bit about you and kind of what brought you here with all of us.
Yeah, man. First, I want to thank you for, considering me to be on here. It's pretty humbling, you know.
Dude, you're the man,
So
bro. You're consistently on the board, man. You know what I
almost makes
mean?
me feel like I shouldn't put numbers up now.
No, man, you should always put numbers up. Yeah. Then you get up here more instead of just, you know, we need people to come on here a couple of times a year, you know what I mean? Blow us out of the water like you've been doing, man.
Yeah, no, man. I appreciate you having me and even thinking of me in that sense. But yeah, I guess a little about me. I think I've pretty much been in sales all my life when I first started
Really?
working. Um, yeah, for the most part. I mean, I've kind of been in and out of like manufacturing jobs where I'd sit there and assemble stuff or package stuff, but it was also the other side of it was I started with customer service slash sales for I think it was T-Mobile or it might have been another company at the time.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was call center, and I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking to people. Um,
So let me ask, I
Selling
have
them.
T-Mobile. Am I overpaying?
Yeah, you probably are.
You still got the hookup over there?
No, bro. I think it might have been another company, honestly, because it was, I was 16. This is, you know, 20, almost 20 years ago, so,
Yeah, yeah.
but I remember, I think it changed to T-Mobile. So I did like various, excuse me, different sales roles, kind of on and off. And my first real job was at a bank. Um, I was actually kind of lost. I was trying to find some work. I was going to a temp agency and I had worked at Nike before, just 12-hour days, stamping aerosols. It was hard work.
Where was
Um,
this at, man?
this is so I live in Beaverton, Oregon. So it's actually where the Nike World Campus is.
I
Um,
didn't know that. Okay.
but yeah, they have a couple buildings outside of the actual campus where, you do a lot of this manufacturing work. But I've done that before and I was like, I need a job. I was trying to go back to that and I went to the temp agency on the resume and they saw that I had some customer service slash sales stuff. I had done some sales to a catalog company before and all that stuff. So they're like, hey, you might be good for this. Do you want to try this? It's for a mortgage assistant role. I don't know, at the time it was like 13 bucks an hour. I was like, heck yeah, Nike was paying 11 bucks an hour. And they're like, you can get
Also, it's a
bonuses.
quick raise.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
At that time I was like, hey, that's pretty good, whatever it was. And that's where I became a mortgage assistant where I would actually just follow up on pre-approval loans, where somebody gets pre-approved, they're shopping, and I would just follow up on a bunch of loan officers loans and I started to see how much money they made and I actually started to really enjoy talking to people about mortgages. So I went out and bought a book, read the whole book front to back because I really wanted to know more about mortgages and have more in-depth conversation with the clients and actually prepare myself to become a loan officer if the position ever opened. So
Right.
that's what happened. A position opened up, a few positions opened up, and there's a bunch of people applying and luckily I prepared. That's what it came down to, and I got the job, and I ended up being there for 5 years. Um, I was part of a really small team where we actually did home loans for employees specifically. So we would do very high up there, like sometimes CEOs, executive vice presidents, um, and then we had overflow of premier clients. So we really had to be very customer service based and also kind of, I guess, take care of them really well. So that's where I kind
Right.
of learned that portion of my sales skills. You know,
Hmm.
this was back in '07 to 2012. Um, and then I, I kind of made I'd say a bad decision because we were making a lot of money there. They cut our commissions. I was kind of doing a side gig. which wasn't the best move, but I decided to go full on to that side gig, and that side gig got me in trouble. Um,
Oh,
and yeah, so I got in trouble. I left the industry, got into the side gig, got in a little bit of trouble, and I knew as soon as that happened, I had to go find a job right away before stuff was on my background. So I went to Comcast, which was a cable company, and I learned a lot in sales there too in 5 years. So by the time I was ending there, a buddy, this was about 2018, 2019, a buddy that was there was doing life insurance stuff. So he kind of introed me to the industry at that time. So that's kind of how I got
okay.
started. Yeah.
So, how has working in life insurance sort of transformed your perspective on life? Um, and how has it prepared you for the success you've been seeing recently?
Um, I think for what we're doing here, life insurance as independent agents, it's definitely transformed my way of it's just knowing that the freedom that we can have, I mean, and it's not to just do whatever we want whenever we want, but if we need to, we can, right? So it's
Right, right.
transformative, yeah, in that way. So um I'm sorry, what was the other question after that?
Just basically, how has it transformed your perspective in life, but how has it also contributed to your success?
Gotcha. Um, I guess in a way it's helped me again just have more freedom and be able to let's say meet somebody or a friend and family member or get a lead and be able to make 1,000 or a couple $1,000s just for that day is very transformative, right?
Yeah.
So as I get older and my kids get older and I see the need for more freedom in my time to be able to take time off when they're sick and not have to ask the boss and worry about my paid time off and things like that's been very transformative for me.
So a lot of people don't realize that this is kind of your own business, right? Like you're an independent agent and you're your own boss. You're your own, if you work, then you make money. If you don't work, there's no paid time off unless you've saved up for it. Everything is revolved around you. But with that comes sort of a freedom, right? That
Yeah.
you've been talking about. But when you first got into this, what was some of the biggest fears and doubts that you had when was starting your own business?
Oh man, I mean, when I first got into it, I failed. To be honest, it was back in 2019. This was when and my biggest fears were I've never done sales where I had to go out and meet somebody. So for a lot of new agents here, that's not something you have to really do now, but um I've always done inbound sales. So I was always good at taking a call, upgrading, flipping, whatever it was. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
that's where a big fear was, right? So, but I was just like, I got to do this, so bought leads, got good at overcoming objections over the phone to book the leads, and then would drive out an hour and a half and then get no showed, or maybe the address wasn't even the right address. They gave me an address to a warehouse, whatever it might have been. You know what I mean?
The
So
good
that
old
that
days
that,
of
that
being
was
in the field, right?
yeah, bro. That was rough, man. I mean, I did okay for the less than a year that I was in there, but it was really rough. And then COVID hits, right?
Yeah,
So
which
COVID hits at the
transformed the
same.
entire business. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I remember going out to somebody's house, and at that time, Transamerica wanted you to do a paper application for your first application. Fill it
Mhm.
out, send it in. They said, "Oh, you're missing this." I had to go back I had to go back like 3 times to get a signature, and this person lived like an hour away. So
So,
that
so,
that was pretty
so
rough.
for those who not used to being in the field, what was the worst house that you ever came up on that you had to knock on the door, go in and make a sale? The worst house, worst
Oh man.
experience.
Um, I would say, oh man, there's a couple. One that was just kind of scary for me. I drove out to the boonies and I've watched way too many scary movies. And I've never really, like I'm by myself. I'm
Like
I'm out in the
Deliverance.
boonies.
Yeah,
Yeah, bro. And it's like, and I'm driving in this private road for a while, and it's like, do not trespass.
yeah.
Beware of dogs. gun owner. Like literally, as I'm going down the road, I'm like, holy crap! And then I see this broken down barn. I'm like, thinking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? And I'm like, I'm hella scared, bro. But I no, but I end up going there, and it's actually a really nice little farmhouse. The dude was pretty pleasant, but he was like, he was smoking weed while I was trying to like help him out, and like, yeah, it didn't pan out, but that was kind of scary leading up to it,
Yeah,
and every time I actually went out to go meet a client, it was just something that was kind of nerve-wracking for me
yeah,
to do, just meeting somebody face to face. It was just not something I was used to, and again, COVID hits. At the time, my wife's like, "Do you really want to go meet people right now? Because we don't know how serious it is, right? Like, it's in the
yeah,
beginning of it, right? Like, we don't know if it's real, fake, whatever it might be." And also people would say, no, I don't want to meet because of COVID, right? So
yeah,
it was a
right.
tough time, man. So I stopped doing that. I actually went and did health insurance for a short time, for
Hmm.
one season. I did Affordable Care Act, so people under 65, not Medicare, but under people under 65. And I learned a lot there also. So that was helpful in my sales career. But that was also rough. It was open enrollment time. My son is 3,
Yeah.
and it was just me and him at home when I'm at home. Luckily, they were allowed us to work at home, but he would be climbing all over my back. If you can imagine, they want me to be there for 12 hours a day or more
Hmm.
on open enrollment. He's climbing on my back. He's underneath the table. He's turning off the computer at times. So I had to take a lot of time off of that. And luckily, they were really understanding.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and somehow I still like won Rookie of the Year, working like half the time. So I guess that kind of I felt good, but I learned a lot from that also.
Wow,
And
man.
then just kind of bounced out back to mortgage loan processing. I mean, I did a couple things just within the short time frame from 2019 until I decided to go back full time here because I've always been kind of just selling more market stuff. You know what I mean? Family and friends during the time being, but I
Yeah.
was, yeah.
So just kind of listening to your story, right? There's been a lot of ups and downs through these transitions, right? What sort of motivates you and helps you push past all these challenges that you come up? What motivates you to get through that?
Oh man, like bills, of course, right? Like I have 2 kids.
That's
One's
an honest
14.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That I mean, they're my why, right? So once my daughter's 14 now, my son is turning 7 in a couple weeks.
Mm,
They're both in the #1 private school in my state, so
that's
that's
awesome.
expensive. Yeah, I mean, it's just a great school, and at first I wasn't really for it. It was my wife pushing it, and then but once I started going to the meetings and stuff like that, I was just like, yeah, I'm all for this. So I'm happy they're in there, and I want to try to keep them in there. The other thing is just my dad's story, man. Like, he came from another country, the oldest son, and just seeing what he's done for coming from another country where he had to escape war. Um,
Which
you know,
country?
so I'm from a very small indigenous group. We're called Mien. We have our own culture and background, and my ancestors are from southern China, but we don't speak Chinese. I don't think we consider ourselves Chinese. We have our own. I guess there's a bunch of subgroups, like small indigenous groups in the
Yeah.
old part of China. My ancestors moved to the mountains of Laos, and then during the Vietnam War, with communism and everything, there was communism in Laos too. And some people may have heard about this or not, but it was called the Secret War, where the CIA was there. They had Americans fighting, I guess, in Laos too. And my grandparents and my great grand uncle, I guess, my grandpa's brother, they fought in the war with the Americans against the communism. Once Americans pulled out, my family was being persecuted, right? So my dad
Yeah.
tells me he vividly remembers he was probably like 8 or 9 at the time, and they walked days, through mountains and jungles to get to a river, and then they had to, charter a boat at nighttime to cross to Thailand because there were some refugee camps there. But they get over there and they get robbed of all their money, and so he kind of grows up there a little bit, and he tells me as he was growing up there, like all he could think about was like going to school right? That's all he wanted to do, but he was the oldest brother. He ended up having like 8 siblings by then, and
Yeah.
he told me how he had to like work really hard in the sun, and he would always just think about going to school. So, I think about how by the time he's my age, I mean, he's bought us 3 houses by then. You know what I mean? And no, like not even a great career. Like it's just him and my mom, and they're just working their butts off, maybe 2 jobs, so they weren't really there. And that's kind of where, me and my brothers grew up, kind of reckless, but at the end of the day, he did so much for us with so little. And when I sit back and think about his story and what he's sacrificed, for us, it's like it makes me feel like, dang, dude, like I'm not even half the man my dad is,
Yeah.
so when I think about that, it makes me push really hard.
Man, that's phenomenal, man. I mean, everybody has a different motivation, but the fact that you have multiple, probably helps you to continue to be consistent like you have been, right? So you can always kind of look back and see your father, and then that kind of puts a check mark in your head. It sounds like to me, hey, I need to get back to it. Um, when you get these challenges that you come up on, would that be fair to say?
Yeah, man. And
Yeah,
and even so, like I'll admit that there are times where I do let my foot off the gas because I had a good week or whatever. And then,
yeah,
it's not something you want to do, to the new agents and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
you might get to a point where like you're really good at closing, I say I'm just above average, but like once you get to that point, you might have a good week and then like you kind of let off the gas and then it might be that bad week, right? I forget
Mhm.
who was talking about that, but I think it's echoed in a lot of these meetings here, right?
Yeah.
When we, talk to um,
Well, I'm in my first 6 weeks, so any kind of game you could give me, the better. Um, what would you say has been your most rewarding experience selling life insurance?
um, the relationships with the clients, I would say, I think
Yeah,
for me, I connect really well with the clients. I feel like, I genuinely care about them when I talk to them, I ask them questions, where I can relate to them a lot of times, and I think they really feel that because most of the time at the end of the call, they're really happy with me. So it's hard to kind of teach that connection, but I think it just comes from genuinely caring about them. And I've had some people who are they're just so thankful at the end of the call, they're sometimes they're praying for me, and things like that,
wow,
and I
that's
feel like
cool.
yeah, and I feel like I just helped a family member. I think because right now I'm doing inbounds and they're mostly final expense, and I think I have a big heart for older folks. I think it's because, I grew up with my great grandparents. They raised us as my parents were always working. We lived in the same household. So I was really, really close to my great grandma. And, I think they just have a tug on my heart, I guess,
Yeah,
Um, also the people I meet, right? Especially in our group here, I mean, I met some really, really great people and some great friends that I know that will just be friends for life, and we check on each other, share scriptures sometimes, so
yeah,
it's yeah, the connections also.
yeah. That I think that's one of my favorite parts about this business is that we get to meet a lot of people, work with a lot of people, um, and it feels like every time new people come in, it kind of like refreshes the whole team. Like it gets you psyched up because you want to see who's going to be on the board. Um, you know, um, I think that's what's really exciting for me, especially when you see somebody make their first sale and you remember that when it was your turn back then, and you got your first sale, that feeling you got, and I love that for people. So, I think that's really cool to see. Um, so in life insurance, right, we talk about legacy a lot, right? Um, and I think it's an important word. Um, but what does legacy mean to you, both personally and professionally?
I mean, I think it's kind of like the impact that you leave behind, right? To the people who you've met or touched, right? In a way where like I guess what they think of you when you're gone, right? So personally for me, I just want to be remembered as a good father, um, and a really good man, a man of God. You know, that's where my faith is.
Right.
Um, so that personally, that's what I want to be. I want to be a get to a point where I can help others. Where I make enough money to help the needy. I feel like that would be a good thing to do. And professionally, if I can just leave something behind for my kids to, I get a foot ahead, right?
Right.
Whether it's knowledge, right? Because I've been telling my daughter to, even though she's in a great school and private school and all that stuff, like to always keep her mind open for entrepreneurship. That whatever she does, to always try to keep her mind open to think about how can I own my own business doing this line of work down the road, right? Because
Yeah.
I just, I see the freedom of being able to control your own schedule and be able to leave when you need to, and so yeah, hopefully I can leave something behind for my kids in that sense.
Makes complete sense, man. Yeah, it's it's kind of interesting, right? Because it kind of just depends on where your mind is when it comes to like legacy. A lot of times we talk about it in a financial form, but if you think about it on a big picture, right? Uh, how long will you really be remembered, right? You'll have kids, your kids will have kids, right? Those are your grandkids, and then they'll have kids, your great grandkids. And right about that point and beyond is where we start to become forgotten, you know? And so it's like you said, do you want to be remembered? And if so, how? Right. And I think it's really cool that you want to leave like a positive impact, um, uh, maybe your great great grandkids could look and see, Grandpa Long, he went through this, right? And he got through the challenges and I can connect to him and I'm going to get through my challenges. That's kind of how I've always looked at it. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much money we make, can't take it with you. You really can't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The Egyptians tried, but all they did was get robbed. So
Yeah.
yeah. But let's say if you could change one thing, the way people view life insurance, what would that be and why?
Oh man, the thing is, a lot of people feel that don't know much about life insurance, right? They all think it's supposed to be like dirt cheap, right? Because their experience is like group coverage, right? Through
Yeah.
through work and stuff. I'm like, man, come on, like
Or
you
or
need to
the
view
ads they see
this
on TV. Get one
exactly
million
like
dollars for 1 million in coverage for $15.
yeah, and it's gonna last them 10 years, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
they need to view this as something that's gonna it comes alive in a sense, financially at least, to take your place, right? To literally take care of what you were doing for your family. Like, how important is that to you, right? Like, it just boggles my mind that some people are like, I don't need it. Like, I don't plan on dying. Like, nobody does, right?
Yeah.
But like for me, I'm getting as much as I can afford, because I know people who were the healthiest and all of a sudden their life changed like that within a few months and they're gone. Is insanely sad. I
Yeah.
know somebody who had his wife was pregnant with his first son. Uh, 3 months before that, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer and he passed away a month before his son was born. It was
Yeah.
extremely sad. And this guy was
We
extremely athletic, so I
we
mean,
just lost somebody to cancer and they were in their mid 40s. So
yeah,
my mom, she passed away of cancer at age 57. Even that's young, you know. You just nobody
yeah,
ever can count when it's going to happen. You just don't know.
exactly.
And that's the
Yeah.
whole
So,
purpose of preparation.
mhm,
And I think that's why life insurance is so important. You're preparing for the inevitable, but even if it happens sooner than you expect.
right. Exactly. And people just have this expectation that it should be dirt cheap. And it's like, no, you should understand, like, this should be something that you see a lot of value. And even if it is more expensive, right? Like, it's going to take care of your family. Who's going to put food on the table? Who's going to pay for that mortgage? Who's going to pay for the schools, right? Like, your spouse is probably going to have to stop working to stay with kids more, or hire a babysitter or whatever it might be, right? So there's all these expenses that people forget about that, what I mean? They just don't think far enough. And so Fortunately, before I became a life insurance agent, I seen the value of it, so, and I got coverage. But now that I am one, like you start to hear stories, and it's like, I got like more coverage since then. So
The crazy ones is people that are on a fixed income and, they always bought term and now they just can't afford any of it, you know.
yeah,
That's always sad. Those ones are tough for me. Because it's just what, people listen to whoever taught them, whatever they taught them, and now they need something and they can't afford it anymore. Especially with
exactly.
the way, inflation's been the last few years too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. So, what's some advice that you would give your younger self if you could go back in time in regards to life insurance?
Regards to life insurance, don't take your foot off the gas.
Yeah,
It's I my first gig being controlling my whole schedule. I thought I had it right. Like I literally would take days off whenever I wanted to. So the thing is there's a learning curve in the beginning, right? I mean, and the more you work, the more you'll learn to get through this learning curve. And then it starts to become knowledge and it starts to become, uh, you know, just ways to be able to solve the customer's problems, right? Like, so the more you learn, the more you work through it. I guess it's just the more knowledge that you'll have, and if you keep your foot on the gas, overcome these challenges where you've got chargebacks or maybe um, uh, objections that you couldn't have gotten past before. You just
yeah,
kind of start to get better at everything, right? So you just got to give yourself that chance to continue pushing forward and learning. Because once you get to a point where like everything clicks, you're like, okay, I've heard this objection 20 times. This is easy to get over, right? Oh, this
yeah,
this carrier canceled out this. Well, I know where to go to look at the underwriting guide for this other carrier. This carrier might take it. So this you just got to keep pushing through and putting in as much work as you can and just continuously pushing, right? That's one thing that I did. And sometimes I'm guilty of still, like I'll take my foot off the gas because I had a good week. But when you do that, right, you kind of lose that momentum and and now you've got to start pushing harder again just to get that momentum back.
yeah. What's some advice that you would give people that are brand new into the business on how to stay riding the wave or any other advice that you would come up with that you see as a pitfall that maybe you fell in or you saw other people fall into in the beginning?
It kind of ties back to the last, answer. Just keep pushing, right? Lean on your uplines, the people here. I mean, we're so lucky to have this group here. I mean, the support here is crazy. I mean, you can just literally hop in a room. There's somebody there. Before that, like sometimes you call your upline, they're not there. They're too busy. They're doing their own thing or whatnot. So lean on to all these resources that we have here. I mean, shout out to HD and Samir. I mean, they just put together such an awesome group here. And anybody else that was involved in putting this virtual group together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we just have so many resources. Take advantage of them, right? Learn because we're in a sense we're kind of spoiled having this. It was a lot harder before, So if you keep your foot on the gas,
Yeah.
continue to learn, right? I would actually challenge you guys to record yourselves, if not on Zoom, record yourselves when you are actually talking to a client. And then I would challenge our uplines or our managers to actually do that so that after a call, when you're coaching them, you can actually play it to them and they can actually kind of pick themselves apart. This is what I used to do at Comcast. That's how they trained us. They would make us listen to our calls once or twice a week. And every time I'd listen to myself, I hated myself, even if it was a good call, even when it was a good sale. I'm like, why did I say that? What, you know what I mean? Like, so like you can
Yeah.
literally they'll coach themselves in that sense. They'll see where they made mistakes, where they should have paused and gave a little bit of time, or maybe where they should have kept going, right? And then the upline or manager can now stop at a certain point and say, hey, this is where we can improve, right? So if you continue to do that and always try to better yourselves, because that's what I got used to. Like I would lose a sale on a call, and I would just think back, like, hey, what did I do on that call that, or what could I have done better? What did go well? What didn't go well? What could I have done better? And I'll either make a mental note or I'll literally jot it down and try to implement in my next call. So if you continue to just dig at getting better instead of just going through the motions, right? Let's say, or if you during the after hours you look at underwriting guides, right? Just study other things that maybe you might have had a rebuttal for. Let's say you ran into a veteran and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got this," and you didn't know how to talk to it. Now you
Yeah,
should go. Now you should go research how veteran burial life insurance works, what they provide, and what VGLI and SGLI is, so that you can talk to that, right?
yeah,
Um, those things, right? Just always learning to get better. I think that's what I would definitely recommend.
man, that's awesome, bro. I think that's all good sound advice. Um, Kind of thinking about your future, right? Where do you see you and your business in the next 5 years?
Man, it's for me, it's kind of tough to say. I want it to be right at a certain point, but I do want to eventually have an agency, you know. It's kind of tough with the system that I'm on right now, right? I need to be available a lot. But I do know that from my experience, I guess, with a couple of agents, I'm pretty good at coaching, right? So I'm definitely there in terms of being able to coach somebody to get better at sales and things like that. But got to find a way to dedicate some time to, I guess have more time to build an agency.
Yeah,
Yeah, right now I'm thinking of adding Medicare to my business, see how that goes.
yep.
Um, but I definitely want to have an agency, where I work less and just, I guess, manage more.
No, it makes complete sense, man. I'm in the Medicare field right now, and that's been exciting, this
Nice.
open enrollment. So yeah, I think you're going right down the right path, man. I think you're thinking of you know, where you want to be, and it looks like you're completing the tasks that you need to get there. And that's why I wanted you on this call so bad, is because of your consistency, man. You're consistently on the board, and you're putting in good numbers. And I think that's the toughest part about this business. That's when you know you really got this down, is when you're consistent. It's no longer so much of a wave. It's like kind of little waves, not so big of dips, not so big of highs. You're just consistently riding, and that's where you want to be. That's how then it's easier for you to track and then project what it's going to look like in the future, and then you can build off that, right? But the tough part is getting to that point. But once you get there, man, it's definitely a whole lot easier to plan ahead for. So I think you're in the right spot, man, and I'm happy to have you here. And throw a one in the chat if Long's conversation and advice is helping you guys. Look at Yamaya.
So,
Man, that was quick. Woo, that was hot, bro. I don't know, people like you, man. Could be the designer. You always got the nice clothes. You know what I mean? I'm still in my first 6 months, so I can't afford all that Gucci and everything else that you got out
I
there.
don't got
You
none
know
of
what I
that,
mean?
bro. Oh man, I'm just trying to match you today, bro. Remember we talked about wearing a beanie and I forgot
Yeah,
where
bro.
I was supposed to wear a black one. So
Yeah, man. Well, you're a little bit of a slow learner, but you'll get there, bro. You know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah,
man.
man.
But yeah, I really appreciate you, man. The last question I have for you, man, and this is probably the most important for everybody on here, is the the work on your arm. Who did it?
Oh man, this is actually kind of ghetto, bro, to be honest.
Ghetto, huh?
I had a friend who really, really, really good artist, and I kept telling him, dude, you should start tattooing, you
Hmm.
know? And he started doing it. He's really, really good now. But I
Wow.
was like one of his first clients, so he like tattooed me free, So I mean,
Oh,
like
that's what's up,
I
man.
gave him a
Free's
picture of
good.
something. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, to be honest, I regret a good chunk of it because, like his work is so good now, I'm like,
Yeah.
damn. And he would
Have
tell
him
me too, he's like, come by, let me get you fixed
fix it
up. I'm
up.
like, man. Yeah, but the thing is, he's booked like 3 months out, and like he's trying to give me free tats, and I'm like, I don't want to do that to you, you know. Like, if I'm going to, like it's your business, I'm not trying to get a handout, but I also can't justify spending that kind of money on myself when I got my kids, you know. So I'm just,
Long, there's another way of looking at it too, man. You were a free canvas for him. So now that he's better, let him fix it.
you're
I
right.
mean, I know a little bit about your culture, man. What is it like to deny somebody's gift?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah,
It's disrespectful.
yeah. Better get in there, bro. Better get in there.
No, I appreciate you, Paul. I mean, I'm,
Yeah.
happy to be on here. I'm gonna call my mom after this, tell her I made it. Paul's calm.
Let's tell your mom I said hi. That's funny. I made it.
Yeah,
I appreciate you, man. Well,
yeah, for sure.
hey, thanks again, man. Really appreciate you for hopping on. And we're gonna kind of close this down. Would you stay here for an extra 5 or 10 minutes, just in case anybody here wants to ask you questions?
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming to Monday Morning Call with Paul, and we'll see you guys next week.